Tower Fantasy is a stunning cross-platform, free-to-play open-world action MMORPG developed by Hada Studio, a subsidiary of Perfect World, and published globally on PC and mobile by Level Infinite and PlayStation by Perfect World Games. At present, there is no cross-play functionality requiring anyone wanting to play on the PlayStation platform to start the game from scratch. Tower Fantasy has quite the loaded history. Before launching globally, the game was riddled with hackers, exploiters, and abusers that often took advantage of known duplication bugs. They had plagiarized Honkai Impact and proceeded to act like it was an accident. They plagiarized another creator's trailer and projected blame onto a studio that they outsourced their trailer to, overall showing a severe lack of competence and humility. 2/3 of a year later, the game launched globally and saw the exact same hacks, the same exploits, and the same duplication abuse replicated. These were all issues that had long since been fixed in the Chinese version of the game, but the studio was too lazy to apply the necessary fixes to the global incarnation of Tower Fantasy in preparation of this happening. Negligence or incompetence? Probably both. Nevertheless, this was all fixed in subsequent patches. And while the game has firmly established a reputation as a running meme within the community, the game, after reaching Domain 9 in 3.0, is a drastic improvement with very few hacks, very few exploits or issues. But with 2024 just a few months from now, is Tower Fantasy going to be worth playing? Is it worth starting? Will it even be alive, receiving new regular patch content? Let's go ahead and take a look. 3.2 released early in September, introducing the new Joltville section of the region into the game. It featured an expansion to the story, a new type of ball to collect, and a few new characters to obtain. 3.3 looks like it's going to introduce the Marshville section of the region into the game, which is a frigid region covered in ice. We also have the introduction of Mami Linhan as a character, along with other characters. There will be an expansion to the story, leading into the upcoming 4.0, including new events, game modes, and balancing adjustments to PvP. 3.0 released on June 27th, 3.1 released on August 8th, and 3.2 released on September 5th. While we don't have a definitive release date for 3.3 as of recording this, it's a safe bet to assume that it's going to be coming at some point in October. 3.4 seems to be introducing the incredibly alluring flute waifu Nanying into the game, followed by Yan Miao. There will be new skins, new events, new game modes, both PvE and PvP, and from what I read online, a potential anime collab. This is a really good move, I think, in my opinion, as Nikke, which is another game that is published by Level Infinite, has had numerous collabs which have all been very beneficial to not only its growth, but also the exposure that the game receives, and by association also, its success. Chainsaw Man, Nier Automata, there was no mention of Aquaville, the final region in patch 3.4, however, nor a note of its release date. There has been no real concrete news or information pertaining to patches beyond 3.4. Some players speculate 3.5 will feature Aquaville. It has to, right? And it will have at least 2 new characters to pull for. And that is the future, the remainder of 2023. 3.3 likely to release in October, 3.4 in November, and 3.5 probably in December, unless complications arise in preparation for 4.0. 2024, of course, is going to begin and follow the game all the way through 4.0 and subsequent 4.x patches. But content cadence is not the only topic of importance, so is revenue. Revenue dictates the quality of patches and the content released therein. So let's take a moment here to look over global revenue for the last year. This is specifically mobile revenue using a few different revenue tracking apps online. This does not include console or PC revenue, which could be double, which could be triple, or even half the mobile earnings. Nor does it include Chinese revenue. So to reiterate, these are rough estimates and not definitively indicative of total gross revenue across every single platform. Before we do discuss those numbers though, let me take a moment to thank our incredible patrons over on Patreon, who allow for me to do regular videos like this, covering MMOs, gacha games, and more every single week. You guys are incredible. Now back to the video. In September 2022, Tower Fantasy made $20 million. In October 2022, it made $6 million. In November 2022, it made $9 million. In December 2022, it made $6 million. In January 2023, it made $2.8 million. In February 2023, it made $2.9 million. In March 2023, it made $2.8 million. In April 2023, it made $2.7 million. In May 2023, it made $1.4 million. In June 2023, it made $1.2 million. In July 2023, it made $1 million. And then in August 2023, it made $1.3 million. Financially, at least from multiple sources, estimate that for purely mobile revenue, the game isn't really doing all that well. From what I recall, however, PC makes more than mobile as more players opt to make purchases via PC, but it's unconfirmed really by what margin. Making anywhere from $1 to $5 million per month globally, disregarding China, is definitely not a bad number though. That's more than Azure Lane, it's more than Punishing Gray Raven and numerous other popular global gacha games. However, they're also not massive open world games and require much less of a financial investment when it comes to new content. And Azure Lane, Punishing Gray Raven, and others all make tens of millions of dollars within China, whereas Tower Fantasy's Chinese revenue, from what you can find online, seems relatively low. Tower Fantasy has a solid, if not relatively linear, trajectory ahead of it. Every 4 to 6 weeks, release a new patch, have new waifus to spend money to obtain, make some balance adjustments, introduce some fun new game modes, which admittedly Tower Fantasy is actually really good at, by the way, and the odd region every 2 or so patches. Earlier this year, I would have said that I didn't see much of a future for the game, but 2024 seems pretty bright. I don't think we're going to see a resurgence in popularity, but it's definitely going to remain relatively stable where it is, at least until Wuthering Waves and Mugen come out. Now, if you're not interested in Tower Fantasy, absolutely no problem. I got you covered with 2 different videos on screen right now that might be of more interest to you.